All right, I want to welcome everyone to this workshop, Resolution Writing 101. This is the very last workshop of our professional development conference. So we are tying it up with, this whole week you kind of went to workshops that were more educational. Some of them were actional as well, but this is a really important workshop for everyone to know just another method of how you can be involved with the SSCCC. Why resolution writing is helpful to you at the statewide level as well as at your local campus level as well. And so I just want to do some quick introductions today. My name is Catherine Squire. I'm the Vice President of the Student Senate for California Community Colleges, as well as a student at San Joaquin Delta College. And I'll let our other presenter introduce herself at this time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shayla Arriola Bittner, and I am currently the Vice Chair of Region 8, and I currently go to Mount San Antonio College.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much, Shayla. So just want to give a little workshop overview of some of the information we'll be covering. We'll go ahead and start. Today we'll be learning how resolution writing is a way to advocate for change, not only on your campus, but statewide across our system. This is probably the most notable thing you know the SSCCC for every year. And so it's just something that we're known for. You're going to learn about our process, our resolution process, and also we're going to have some interactive component of this workshop that will help you engage with other students in writing resolutions and starting to kind of be involved with that process, and also identifying issues that you're passionate about and finding solutions to those issues. So why is resolution writing important, right? Why do we advertise this everywhere? Why is it such a big thing with the SSCCC statewide? Well, it's a way to address issues on your campus and statewide. Resolution writing in the past has been used to address a variety of issues, the most notable ones being basic needs, things like housing insecurity, mental health, but there are tons of other important issues that are important to community college students, right? Environmental sustainability. Those are just some that I can name off the top of my head, but there's so many issues that impact community college students, both at the campus and statewide level. And so it's important that we provide a platform for you to express what issues are important to you, and how we can get that feedback from you as students. And those issues oftentimes end up becoming our priorities for the coming year. We'll explain a little bit more of the process as this workshop goes on, but the resolutions that you all vote on as a state when you send your representatives to our delegate assembly, end up voting for the resolutions that they believe are most important, that have the issues that are most important for us to address. And so those end up becoming both our legislative priorities and just general priorities that we try to advocate for every year. And then lastly, that it can lead to the creation of legislation. So a lot of the resolutions that you all write have actually ended up becoming bills because we've identified that those are important to you, and so we work with legislators in the Capitol as well as at the district level to make sure that we're ensuring that those issues and those concerns are being heard, but more importantly that they're being addressed through legislation and through solutions, right? So that's why resolution writing is important. We're going to go ahead and get into the timeline a little bit, just some important deadlines to know and to kind of just keep in your mind, just because it seems pretty early right now, but these deadlines come up faster than you can imagine, and so it's just important for us to give you an overview of those. And so coming up this November 18th, 2020, we're going to be disseminating our active resolutions for the upcoming year. Those being the resolutions that were passed at last year's spring 2020 General Assembly that we have been working on. And so those are just, to let everyone know of what our priorities have been. Alongside those, we also have our legislative priorities, which we've already released. And so those kind of tell you what we're advocating for in the upcoming bill cycle. Then January 28th, we get to January 28th, which is probably the biggest deadline there is. This is the first original resolution submission deadline. So super important to know, because if you are interested in writing a resolution, this is a really, really hard deadline. And so you want to make sure you're getting that in on time. Then we have February 22nd of 2021, when we will be releasing the first packet, which contains all the resolutions that were submitted. And then February 17th will be the deadline to make amendments to resolutions. If there are any edits that you have to make prior to the second packet being sent out, then that is really the deadline for that. So you have to do it before then. And we work with you to do all of that in that case, and so we'll get into that as well. And then the last deadline here is February 22nd, when the amended resolution packet comes out. Yeah, and Shayla just put in the chat, if this is something that you're interested in doing, please take a screenshot of these deadlines. They're really important to know. This is something that we don't usually extend, and so I just want to make that a point. Did you have anything to add, Shayla?
No, I just wanted to remind everybody, because I think that when it comes to just staying on top of it, it's always nice to kind of start thinking of it early. And a good way to always have a very visual reminder is to snap a picture, right? And obviously, like, if this is something that you really do or are strongly considering, I would also recommend that you maybe put some of these dates into your calendar, your Google Calendar or your Apple Calendar, whichever you prefer. That way you can at the very least have reminders, and that way you will be able to stay on top of it, and you won't find yourself in a situation where you just forgot about it because of school and life and you missed the deadline, right? There's nothing worse than that. So I would definitely recommend doing those things if you're pretty interested in doing this and starting this process.
Yeah, I would say especially when it comes to that first resolution submission deadline, it's not easy to write resolutions all the time. I think when I wrote my first one, it took me about 2 weeks to really get it to the point that I was, okay with how it looked. And so I just want to mention that another tip is just to really plan out ahead. You want to make sure that what you're submitting is your best product. And then in addition to that, there's also a component that requires you to get your resolution sponsored before you submit it, and so it has to have sponsorship. And we'll go through that whole process, but I do want to say that's why these deadlines do come up faster than you think, as you'll see when we go on. All right, so Shayla is going to get into our next slide here.
All right, so now we're going to start talking about the step-by-steps. How do you actually start the process of writing a resolution? We mentioned this a little bit in terms of kind of what you should draw from earlier, but it really does start with engaging with the student population on your campus. And I know that, we're in a very tough situation when it comes to engagement because we're all online. However, if your campus is still having meetings in terms of like club meetings, or even like if you're involved in AS, like AS meetings and things like that, then I would definitely suggest going to those kinds of meetings, especially club meetings, because I feel like those meetings are where there's usually a lot of talk about what students would love to see just in general, right? And oftentimes they don't know where to start, right? So it's usually just a discussion. So if you're someone who doesn't know exactly where to start, or you want to get a broader idea of what a lot of students on your campus would like to see change, or on a broader scale, or things that they'd like to see, then I would definitely recommend going to, all the active club meetings on campus, or as many as you can, right? Or even if you do have an idea that you are already like thinking about, and you want to get an idea of like if people like it or if they agree that this is an issue, that's another great way to kind of test the waters, is to just have these conversations with a a diverse group of students who will kind of be able to give input, and you can really have a good dialogue that way with a relatively decent size of students on campus. Now, obviously, you won't be able to get to everybody. I don't know about you guys, but my school has around, I think, 60,000 upwards to close almost 70 at like during a given year. And so obviously you can't like get to all of them, but I would definitely say that a good sample population would definitely be your clubs. So that would be, I think, a really good place to start if you're looking for ideas, or even if you want to throw out resolution ideas and you just want to like get a good idea of what everyone really cares about. And then once you have an idea of what you want to write about, you just got to start writing. Draft one as soon as you can. Once you kind of come to an idea of what you would like to see, right? Like just the wording and all of that, then I would definitely just write it down. And then once you've written it down in a way that you're proud of and you think looks nice and really well articulates exactly what you're trying to achieve, then from there you will seek support. And this will be in the form of a sponsorship. And for us in the SSCCC, we allow you to seek sponsorship from other SBAs or ASOs, whatever you want to call them. They're the student government groups on each campus. You can also seek sponsorship from regional caucuses, as well as the SSCCC the SSCCC board of directors, as well as regions. So any of these, right? And you only need one. So you don't have to worry about getting a ton of support like right off the bat. You really just need one group to say, yes, we support this. And then, there's another thing that you'll have to keep in mind when it comes to this, but I'm going to mention that a little bit later. Next slide. All right, so once you have submitted, make sure that you submit your resolution 55 days before RGA. With the minutes attached to or the minutes from the meeting in which like you got like a resolution sponsored attached. That way we know that it is sponsored and that it is, that it meets all the necessary requirements. So yes, this is definitely a deadline to be aware of, that you don't want to sleep on. That way, you can just, and I would honestly recommend turning it in early if you already have an idea of what you would like to write, or if say like you start this process in like next semester, I would still recommend getting it in as soon as like you get a sponsorship. Honestly, I would turn it in. That way you don't have to worry about this deadline, and it doesn't have to stress you out or anything like that. And yeah, if you're interested, I would definitely take a picture of this slide as well, because it includes the email that you will need to send all this to. So I would definitely take note of that. And then, once you've submitted it, say at some point between after the submission and the presentation at GA, you decide that you want to change something, or one of your sponsors wants to change something. You have a short window of about 20 days in between when you were supposed to have turned it in, the deadline, and then the second deadline that is specific to amendments. So keep an eye on that one as well, because even though obviously you don't immediately think that you'll need to remember this, because you will assume that you'll have everything done well and there won't be any changes that need to be added, but you never know, right? And so I think that's another deadline to keep in mind, because something could change. You might want to add something, and at the end of the day, you want to really put out fully and exactly like what you mean for GA. So if for whatever reason that message or that goal changes, right, then you need to try to change it within that window. And lastly, make sure to have someone speak on your behalf. It's not, or well, specifically a delegate. You won't need to speak, or you won't be allowed to speak for very long, but it is important to have someone speak on your behalf. So then that way you can, well, the people at GA can get a good idea of um, what exactly your resolution is about. And it's always kind of nice to have it read out loud by someone who cares about the resolution. So definitely keep that in mind and make sure that you send someone who really wants the resolution to pass. All right, and let's talk about the content. So who can write it? Anybody essentially who is a community college student. So this is where, again, talking to your peers at your school can be really useful, because you can also, again, you can kind of collaborate on a group project essentially, and you can get a lot of opinions and a lot of ideas thrown in there if you would like. And so there's really we're not super picky about who's going to write it, because ideally we want people to feel empowered to come forward with these ideas and these resolutions. So again, any community college student can write it. And ideally, we would want the content to be addressing an issue that really means something to your campus or multiple campuses, if you've seen this as like a prevalent issue throughout. And yeah, we just, ideally, we want it to be something that you guys care about, right? And it's something that ideally could also be something that's impacting you, impacting your friends, right? Like anybody. And so when it comes to thinking about, again, the content, that is definitely words like relevant, impactful. Think about that when it comes to like the actual message of your resolution, because I think things like that are ultimately going to be what will be most supported at GA, and long term, those resolutions are going to be what are most impactful. In terms of the nitty-gritty details, you are limited to 4 whereas sections and 4 resolved sections. So whereas sections essentially are just these parts of a resolution that talk about like background info, right? They don't really go into like the specifics of like what you're asking for or what you want to see change specifically. That's more kind of the resolve section. But the whereas is definitely the area where you can bring in a lot of background, any statistics that are relevant. And also this is where you will also describe what you're pitching, right? And you introduce kind of like the whole idea there. And then the resolved section is essentially like, okay, this is what we want. This is what we're asking for. And it's kind of just a more direct ask of what you want to see changed. And yeah, if you have any doubts, if you have any questions, if you need any help, please feel free to contact us. I think Catherine's email will be at the end of this section. I can also provide my email as well, but I would definitely recommend that if you're just a regular community college student, that you should try to definitely get in contact with your delegate, your region, right? The office or the regional officers there, because I think they would also be really good help for you, because I mean, that's honestly part of their job is to elevate voices like yourself, and elevate like as many voices from their community college region. And yeah, I think that's about it for that section.
Right. So I just want to add some notes here too. Shayla mentioned this is open for all community college students. This is really the most easiest way to get involved with this, right? And most direct way to really shape our priorities as an organization. But this is really where I want to emphasize how important it is to be in your region, because a lot of this information will be reiterated in your region meetings and region trainings. But region meetings are also, and just being involved in your region generally, is also also provides you with the opportunity to collaborate with other students who may be finding the similar issue that you identified on your campus on other campuses. And so you also see a lot of resolutions that come from multiple campuses because those students that have been involved in their regions find kind of that community with each other. And so that's really where that comes from.
Yeah.
The other point I want to mention real quick is just, kind of discuss the content and discussed finding an issue that really you think is really impactful. And I just want to mention that, a lot of the issues that are identified every year are issues that have been ongoing. And so there are past resolutions that have addressed certain issues time and time again. And so I really want to encourage everyone to kind of move past those general issues and get a little bit more specific with your resolves. Just because as an organization, we actually don't accept duplicate resolutions. So if you're writing something that has already been passed before, we're not going to take it. We'll reject your resolution. So that's just something really important to note as you're writing these, and if yours gets rejected, that might be a reason why.
Yes. So get involved as much as you can. I mean, if you're already thinking about writing a resolution, then obviously you have an interest in making a larger impact on across all community colleges. So yes, I would definitely recommend to get involved in your region if you can.
I just have a question here. So the question is there somewhere we can find past resolutions to know which issues have already been addressed? So the answer is yes, and we're going to actually get to that at the end of this presentation. So I'll answer that question then. But for now, we'll go ahead and move on into our interactive component of this workshop. So there's no better way to know what resolution writing is like other than to actually do it, right? So this activity is going to put us into breakout rooms of about 4 or 5 students per room. And we're actually going to put it into practice, right? Everything that we're learning here. So you're going to be placed into a room. And so what we're going to ask you to do is you're going to pick amongst your group members, kind of discuss a common topic that may be seen all over your campuses. Pick a common topic. You're going to work together to come up with 1 to 4 whereases, which kind of lay out the problem, and 1 to 4 resolves, which kind of propose the solution. We're only going to be in there for 10 minutes, and actually you don't even have to come up with 1 to 4. You can come up with 1 or 2 whereases or 1 to 2 resolves. It just depends on how laid out you want your problem and solution to be. And then, if you're using stats and stuff, get in the habit of citing your sources. We do ask for that when you turn in your resolution. After that, you're going to share it with my email. I'll put it in the chat. And then I'm actually going to bring everyone back in, and we'll pick one or 2 group leaders to kind of present your resolution. Even if it's not all the way done, this is a kind of a shorter activity than if you were writing a real resolution. So no worries about that. And so this link here, I'm actually going to give everyone a template to kind of start off with, and then you'll go ahead and make a copy of that for your own records. Pick someone to kind of keep track, or if you all want to share one document, that's up to how you want to organize your group. But I'm going to stop sharing here, put all these links in the chat before we go into breakout rooms, so you have it. So just give me a second. Shayla, are you able to do that?
Am I able to what?
To put that link.
Sorry, put the link to the template. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think I got it actually.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing this before show, so everyone should have access to this information in the chat before you go into your breakout rooms. Oops. I didn't mean to actually private message one person, so ignore that. And then I also put my email in here so you can share it at the end of your time in the breakout room. All right. And then can everyone just double check, make sure you can access it. If you're having problems, please private message me and I can go ahead and fix it. Just want to make sure it works. Shayla, does it work for you when you open it?
Yeah, I just opened it. It should work fine as long as you have a decent internet connection.
Okay. So with that being said, just give us a moment here and we'll put everyone into breakout rooms. And you should be receiving an invitation shortly.
To miss Gerald.
Alrighty. I hope everyone had some good discussions. It's okay if you're not done. Oh, Gerald's gonna miss his group. Looks like it was a good discussion. Does anyone feel brave enough to share the resolution? I know for many of you, this may be the first time, so that's okay. If you want to share your resolution, maybe you can put the link to it in the chat. And I'll go ahead and pull it up on the screen. Any brave volunteers?
This isn't very open space, so just think of this as kind of just an extension of the discussion that you were having, you know, in your groups. And I mean, obviously, Gerald was saying that he had some pretty good discussions. I personally had some pretty good discussions in my group about some resolution topics. So I think you guys definitely got some good ones, and we want to kind of just continue that conversation here, just so that we can, yeah, just kind of have it on a larger scale. So yeah, just if you would like to talk or continue talking about it, yeah, don't be afraid to speak up.
Yeah, I think if no one wants to share their like actual resolution, we can just talk about, you know, kind of the process that you were going through, maybe some of the topics that came up or some of the concerns or struggles you might have had too. So is there anyone feel free to share?
I would love to share.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi. So it's my first time ever writing a resolution, so I don't really know what are whereas and like resolved. So this is my first time, but I do have a topic that I came in with beforehand. I was thinking to write a resolution on. It impacts me personally and as well as other students that I know who are in my community college. So I know it's kind of different and it's very specific, but it's something important that I think we should have, which is kind of having some sort of support system for those who are impacted by genocide or atrocities, because I know there's a lot of many international students who come here for either like asylum or better education opportunities. And I have friends who are kind of impacted by these, and they do face a lot of issues when they come to the community college, like culture shock or financial issues because they have to live alone. So I wanted to have our community college not only like support their students, but also provide resources that is more related to, I guess, these specific issues where it can be a little bit more traumatizing and not like, you know, you're not the normal, I guess, issues people may have or may be aware of. So I wanted to have some sort of awareness as well. And yeah, that was some of my ideas, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That's a great one. You know, that's one I haven't heard yet. We don't currently have a resolution on something like that, so I would really encourage you to run with that idea. I think, you know, you also you brought up a great point about what writing resolutions is also about. It's about educating others on issues that they may not realize are problems as well on their campuses. And so, you know, that can be really inspiring to a student to kind of go back and maybe do the research about what student populations are on their campus. And a lot of the problems, you know, we face very personally, but a lot of them are also problems that we're not aware of that are happening to others. And so I think that's really important, an important thing that you brought up. So thank you so much for that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share their thoughts or add on to the discussion?
Any questions in particular? We could also extend that to just conversing about the details and stuff.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Sorry, I know I keep talking, but actually I have two questions. So if we haven't ever written a resolution, is there some sort of template or a guideline that we can follow to help us understand how to structure it and what to say, per se, in the resolutions?
Yeah, so that link I dropped in the chat earlier has a template. Actually, let me pull it up and then maybe
Thank
that'll make
you.
it easier. But then, I also want to direct everyone. Actually, I'll just go through this first and then, sorry, my mind's a little all over the place. Let me pull that up here.
I would also like to add that a lot of your ASOs might also have a template that that is like potentially like essentially the same thing as this, except maybe just a little bit more. I don't know, like if like particularly if you're thinking about passing a resolution at your community college, I think that that would definitely be a good place to start. If you're thinking about going for both like the impact like at your school and then the impact within all the community colleges, that you should definitely look at both. They're essentially going to be the same, but I do know that some of them can give a little bit more context as to like, oh, you should describe it here, include statistics here, and sometimes it can be just a little bit more easier to follow. And so this is a very like just basic, like this is what you can have for submitting a resolution to the SSCCC. But if you want another like option, I would definitely recommend looking up resolution templates at your local ASO, because mine does have one that I found pretty useful when I was first starting out with writing resolutions. So yeah, I would definitely reference probably this one and any that your local ASO has.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and outline this. And I realize this looks really, really vague because it basically just has the 4 whereases and 4 resolves. But the reason why it's so vague is because resolutions can literally be about anything, right? And they're so versatile. But Shayla, you also brought up a really good point. Resolutions are not something unique to the SSCCC. They're also found on your campus a lot. Your boards of trustees usually pass resolutions as well. So I encourage you and go back and look at some of those minutes as well for your boards of trustees meetings. A lot of the times they'll bring forward resolutions there to support specific issues or take a stance on something. That's pretty common. But the way you want to think about a resolution is basically it's really just one long sentence. And the 4 whereases really are just kind of outlining the problem that you've identified, right? They outline the problem with your stats, with your research. If you're using surveys, if you're just using, it can even be stats particular to your college or also stats statewide. That's really your research part of this, and that's why there's a space here for sources as well. Your resolves are really what you're proposing should be the solution to the problem you've just outlined in the top. And so your resolves is what you're asking us as an organization to work on your behalf. For bills, if you're looking for a bill, then in your resolve somewhere it should outline resolve the SSCCC advocate for a bill that addresses this issue or that addresses that issue. And so that's something very specific, can be different than that. That's an example, right? The other resource I really want to point to, I was going to go over this at the end, but I think it might be a little bit more useful here. We just launched their new website yesterday, so I actually encourage everyone to go look at that. It looks amazing and so much better than the way it was. But we have I think it's under, just let me make sure. Nope. Oh, here. What we do, and then you go to SSCCC resolutions. And so we actually have a database that has every resolution since 2016 that has been passed. And so this is a huge, really, really useful resource because you can see all the topics that have been passed. So obviously you don't want to duplicate topics, but it's also a great learning resource for you to actually put yours together as well. And I'll go ahead and open one up here just to show you what it looks like. Let's see what's a good one. I'll go ahead and go to 5.
Thank you. That's actually super helpful.
Yeah. Okay, here's one about gender inclusive facilities. I think this was, for getting just gender neutral bathrooms on campuses. And so it has, the year that it was approved, the session, obviously the title and what committee it was assigned to, but it actually has the actual resolution in here. And so it kind of gives you an overview of, what that looks like. And so this was the actual resolution that was approved. And so you'll see here in the resolves, you've got a bunch of stats. And let me see if I can read through these. They cited like a bill in here that required all single user toilet facilities in any business establishment, place of public accommodation or government agency to be identified as all gender toilet facilities. And so they use that stat as a foundation to kind of build up to their resolves down here of what community colleges should be doing, and as a result, what our organization should be doing. So that's a very basic example, right? But if you're thinking about a topic that's maybe similar, obviously not the same as the ones I haven't approved here, but you might want to look through some of those that may be similar and kind of see, the language of those, because those are a really good example. And of course, they have all their citations down here, right? So I just want to give that out as a resource. Have all these resolutions been passed? Yes. So this database has all the resolutions that have been passed since 2016. There were resolutions before that, I think, but we don't have a record of those. And so this is just what we have. But, this is like 4 years worth of resolutions, right? So really good resource. Awesome. So do we have any more questions? Okay, I see one more. How are we able to pass the resolutions as state legislation? So you don't pass the resolutions as state legislation. The purpose of the resolutions are to get us to lobby on your behalf. So, if there's a resolution that passes and it's advocating for a specific bill that you want, we then take that, we make it a legislative priority of our organization. We're a nonprofit, but we, so that we're an organization that lobbies on your behalf. Obviously, we can't create legislation ourselves. Only the state legislator can do that. But that's the power we have as the Student Senate, is to take that and work with legislators on the language to author a bill. And a lot of the times we'll end up, signing on as a sponsor or endorser or supporter of that bill in some capacity. And so that does carry a lot of weight, though, and that's how many of the bills that we've been advocating for have come to pass. I want to mention, the whole fixed financial aid campaign and, increasing Cal Grants and getting more Cal Grants for community college students. That's something that we advocated for, that students let us know was an issue. The other one was AB 1504, which gave us, now all the community colleges have an increased student representation fee from $1 to $2. And that second dollar actually goes to us as an organization to better lobby for you. And so that's an example of that actually came straight from a resolution. So we took that and ran with it. And so that, I think is really a testament to the power and the influence that we have as the Student Senate. So we're really working for you. We can't make legislation, but we can try as much as we can.
Advocate on your behalf as strongly as we can. Another thing that I wanted to add is that in addition to having the ability to lobby, one thing that we do or we can provide for you in terms of your resolutions, and we can provide a pretty large scope in terms of access to other advocates and other community colleges. So if this is something, if any resolution that you write is one that you feel strongly enough about, you can, after passing it at your own college, you could go on to then advocate for it in other regions as well. A former SSCCC officer, I believe, he passed an emergency grant resolution at his community college, and then he went on to present at like the board of trustees, or not the board of trustees, sorry, the board of directors, and then through that he was able to then have it be dispersed to the regions, and through that he was able to, or they were able to essentially give their give their resolution to a much wider audience, and it allows for other students who are also interested to then potentially pick it up and then pass it at their own community colleges. So there's a lot of potential there. If you really feel passionate about what it is you're advocating for, you could go to every single, you could go to like a delegate assembly, or you can go to the delegate assemblies that are happening like every month in each region. You can advocate for it on your behalf, and that, or just on behalf of like students in general. And you can potentially get that passed in a lot of schools more directly if you find people who are interested, who are involved in other colleges too. So there's just a lot of ways in which we can provide access and the ability to make these changes on a larger scale outside of your community colleges. So there's just a lot of different ways we can do that, whether it's through lobbying, or whether it's through just having direct access to other advocates in other community colleges that can then continue what you're trying to do at other community colleges. Can anyone present your resolution? I think it's delegate. Well, are you talking about, if you're talking about at our General Assembly, I should ideally be a delegate, because that's essentially like a big part of what General Assembly is kind of a gathering of, well, delegates and students as well, or specifically it's usually delegates and students who are involved in student government. I believe if you can't get a delegate to speak on your behalf, I think you can get one of the sponsors to speak on your behalf as well. But yeah, is there any specific stuff outside of having the delegate or the sponsor speak? Can anybody else, like if you can't get either of those, can you get someone else, Catherine?
So it should be the delegate that speaks on it, because that's kind of your representation on behalf of your college.
So yeah, I would definitely just aim to get your delegate to speak on your behalf, or someone who is helping push the bill forward, ideally.
All right, so it's okay if I know this was a very, short 10-minute activity. Obviously, many of you may not feel comfortable sharing your resolutions as it's a first draft. But the point of this activity was really to just get you to start thinking about that process. Maybe you knew that you wanted to write a resolution, but you didn't know what topic to write it about. And so hopefully these discussions kind of, got you thinking about what that topic might be, or if there's several topics that you had in mind, kind of narrowing it down. I mean, you can still author several resolutions if you choose to. And then, still just starting to kind of get involved in the process of writing a resolution to start with, and seeing where maybe you need to improve. Even if you've written a resolution before, there's always room for improvement, right? Even students who have been doing it for years, there's always room to improve. And so hopefully this got you kind of thinking about that. So I do want to make sure we have enough time. So we'll go ahead and take any last questions at the end of this presentation so we can get through the rest of the information. But I'll hand it off to Shayla. But now you've written your resolution. That's it, right? You submit it. Well, not yet. There's one more thing before that. We're not going to take your resolution without sponsorship. And so Shayla's going to get into sponsorships for us.
Yes, so I mentioned earlier that part of the step-by-step process of getting your resolution passed at the SSCCC level, you need to have a group sponsor your bill or your resolution. So like I said before, you need at least one sponsor who is either like you're a student government group from a community college, either a region delegate assembly, or a recognized caucus, or the board of directors itself to sponsor the resolution. And kind of similar to passing resolutions at your community college, it needs to be passed by a majority vote by the members of the voting body. And then something to keep aware of when it comes to getting sponsorships is that each group can only sponsor 3 or up to 3 resolutions. Now, obviously, that's even if you end up coming in a little bit late in terms of getting sponsorships, there's still like a lot of groups that you can ask. But it's always best to, I think, kind of try to make sure that, again, like I said before, once you're done and once you're confident in what you've written, immediately just start looking for groups to sponsor your resolution, whether that be your local student government, your region, or if you want to go higher, the board of directors, or if you're involved in a caucus in the SSCCC, you can get them to also sponsor a resolution. But you do need to be kind of aware of the three resolution cap when it comes to sponsorship. So if you do wait too late, you might struggle to find people who have maybe sponsored, who haven't sponsored three if you end up kind of going in late. So I would definitely just avoid the stress of having to worry about that, and just kind of, and yeah, just as soon as you're done, just contact groups that you think will support your resolution.
Yeah, and one note I do want to mention, while it does have to be a student body association, a region, or a region, those are included in those. It does not necessarily have to be your student body association. So you can go to another campus's student body association and say, hey, will you put my resolution on the agenda to get approved by your student government at your campus? Or if you're in like region 2, you can actually have your resolution put on another region's agenda to get sponsored. That's something I did. It's very common. We try to get as many resolutions as sponsored as possible. And then just one thing to know, obviously, it's kind of obvious, but just to put it out there, we do not accept resolutions that are not sponsored. So you have to have a sponsorship from some sort of group, whether it be an SBA, region, caucus, or our board of directors.
Right, which is why, to kind of echo what Kat was saying, which is, so you do have a relatively large group to pick from when it comes to sponsors, when you include all the student government associations across all community college campuses. However, if you wait a little bit too late, you could potentially run into the issue of having to reach out to different community colleges, which might end up being a little bit more time on your part. So definitely just keep that in mind when you are writing the resolution, or if you're just kind of creating a timeline in your head about how you want this all to work out.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cover amendments. And amendments are basically, tiny changes to your resolution that you may need to make after you submit it for the original submission deadline. So after you submit it the first time, you can submit amendments up to 35 days before General Assembly. The process that we have been doing is having the authors of the resolution come to one of our Rules and Resolutions Committee meetings. If you do need to make changes, you need to make sure that you go to your sponsor first and say, hey, I need to make these changes. Please approve them, and you need to have that sponsor put it on the agenda and approve the changes to support them. And then you're going to go ahead and bring those minutes from that meeting along with your amended resolution to our committee, so that way we can accept those changes. And a lot of the times our committee will also recommend some changes as well. They don't drastically change your resolution in any form. It may be just like typos or formatting or things like that that we see and that we want to fix. And so that's why we ask you to be present to make sure that you're okay with any changes that we recommend as well. And so everyone who submits a resolution has to attend a Rules and Resolutions Committee prior to GA and the 35-day deadline in order to meet that amendment deadline. And so I just want to encourage you to look out for those committee agendas if that is the case for your resolution. We usually do hold about 1 to 2 meetings within that period of time. So if you cannot make one, then we'll propose a second date for you to make as well. And this note is just in here just as a clarification. This is something we used to do and we no longer do it. We used to accept amendments at General Assembly. And so any delegate at General Assembly could propose an amendment on the floor. Well, we realized that that's just too messy of a process. A lot of the times it ends up altering the resolution to the point where, the author no longer really agrees with the the original intent of what the resolution was supposed to address. And so that process was getting very, very messy. And so that's something that we no longer do. That's why we ask you to bring it to our committee, because it just makes the voting process at General Assembly go a lot smoother. All right, so you've submitted your resolution. If you needed to amend it, you made the amendments before the deadline, right? So what happens next? So General Assembly happens next. And if you don't know what General Assembly is, it's basically a huge conference of all 116 community colleges. We have each community college in the state of California pick one student who is called the delegate to serve as the representation for their campus. And so the General Assembly is the gathering of all those delegates, but of course we also have a lot of students come as well, just because the General Assembly is just like a huge conference, and so we also have a bunch of workshops, but I'm deviating a little. But the gathering of these delegates, they come together and they actually debate which resolutions they believe should be a priority for us. And so we leave it up to the colleges to decide that. We don't decide that, right? Because that's not really in our purview to do. And so we have the students come together, they debate the resolutions that are presented, that have been submitted and amended, and then they take a vote on whether to approve or deny the resolution. And so the ones that obviously get approved become our priorities for the following year, and that's what we really use to advocate on your behalf. And so it's a very direct process, as you can see. That's not something we decide, that's something that you all decide, as our 116 colleges. And I have a question in the chat that's asking, when is General Assembly? So General Assembly, we're gonna be having in April. I believe it's around March, April of 2021. And so we'll be sending out obviously the announcement and opening registration and all of that through a listserv. I'll talk about how you can sign up for a listserv at the end of this presentation. But you'll have all that information in advance. So usually your advisor, you work with your advisor to get your college, your student body registered and have you all attend the conference. All right, so that really concludes the end of this presentation, but we do want to offer you some resources. Our resolution writing guidelines packet, this is a packet that we release every year. And it basically has all the information we presented today, but it outlines it a lot more in depth, has some extra little details that you'll find helpful in writing a resolution and engaging their process. And so we'll also have some other resources. We have that template available, which is very broad, but can kind of get you started. I want to encourage everyone to keep in contact with us. Our listserv is really where we'll send any updates or any important materials, including that guidelines packet. And so this presentation will be attached in this professional development conference app. And if you open it up and go to that link, you'll be able to find out how to sign up for our listserv. It's basically an email thread. And then we have a workshop evaluation that was part of this, this presentation, just to ask you all, how this workshop was for you, what other resources you want to see or improvements to future workshops. And then I provided my email here, vp@studentsenatedccc.org. But if you have any just general questions about resolution writing, you can also email resolutions@studentsenatedccc.org. I get all of those emails as well. And so that's just a way, if you have additional questions, you can go ahead and contact me there. Oh, and yes, Shayla provided her email as well. And also our General Assembly, we do have a solidified date. So it is going to be March 26th through the 28th in Long Beach. So our plans are currently to hold it in person, but with the option of actually also having a virtual component. So if you cannot send your delegate in person, I know some colleges, financially don't have the budget to That's a problem that we realized, and so we wanted to also offer that virtual component for those who cannot attend in person. And then just last slide, and then we'll open it up. I think we have 5 minutes left for any last questions or just more information that you might need. But I want to encourage everyone to stay connected with our organization. Here are all the handles to our Instagram, our Twitter, and our Facebook. We're super active on them, and so we also send out any useful information through them as well. But with that being said, I want to thank everyone for coming to our workshop. Hopefully this was super beneficial to you, kind of got you started and learning about our process, and you got the chance to engage with peers and other students across California. And so just want to thank everyone for coming. Thank everyone for being part of this professional development conference. This is the last workshop, so just super happy to have everyone here. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. We know you all are probably very busy, and at times it can be kind of a struggle to stay involved. So we thank you and applaud you for taking time out of your day to get involved, because you definitely do not have to. But yeah, any last minute, anything, questions, further discussion, anything at all?
Can I make a comment? I want to say that this is probably like the best workshop, because the other workshops were not technically workshops. They never made us at least try to do something hands-on, so maybe that's why they weren't rated as good, when they tell us to rate the stars and everything. But I think you guys did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. That was very sweet. Can anyone at your school be the delegate for your resolution? So when we say delegate, that is normally it is a position that is designated usually to one of your senators at your local community college. That's normally how that works. Now, technically, you are, well, if for whatever reason your delegate cannot make it, I know that you if that ever were to happen, then your delegate can kind of give you or allow you to kind of serve as the delegate for that meeting. So if you were to go to like a delegate assembly to promote your resolution, or if you're going to go to, I think, even potentially GA to promote your resolution, that is a possibility. I myself have done that before. Last year when I wasn't involved in the SSCCC, and my delegate couldn't make it, he let me serve as the delegate for that meeting. So that is a possibility, but it's delegate implies that it is a official position that is bestowed upon a student by your student government. So
yeah, so it varies per student government. Some of them you'll have the delegate ingrained in your constitution and bylaws. My college does that. It makes for a senator of legislative affairs, for example, or a delegate. But for those who don't have that ingrained in your bylaws and you don't have any kind of like outlined, solidified process for that, all you would need to do is have your student government put it on the agenda as an item, and then you actually need to take a vote on it and make one of your senators or whoever it is your delegate.
yeah, hope we answered that question well enough. Are there any others? Any other
I
comments?
see one from Mayara. So just to explain again in your words what the whereases and resolves are. From what I understood, whereas could be the issue we found and want to address, and resolves would be what we would like to be done in order to have the issue resolved. Yeah, so your whereases are basically supposed to outline the problem in a format where you include research to support the problem. So for example, with the gender inclusive facilities, they were advocating for gender neutral bathrooms on California community college campuses. They use a stat to make their case for that being a problem in their whereases. And then the resolve was like, each community, the SSCCC advocate for a certain number of gender neutral bathrooms at each community college campuses. And so your resolves are really your solution to the problem. Sorry, your resolves are the solution and your whereases are the problem. And so that, hopefully that kind of helps you see the connection there.
Yeah, I think
And
you did a pretty good job at understanding that, just to comment on that. But yeah, one thing that I was just looking over the wording too. One thing that I will say that I saw was a commonality amongst some of the resolutions was that the resolutions, well, the whereases don't really have like a ton of like commonalities in like how they're written, because to Kat's point, they're literally just describing the issue and they're trying to outline why it's an issue. And then the resolved is saying things like the SSCCC will do this or it shall do this, and it's a lot of like action, like this is what we're going to do, and it just kind of outlines it in that way. And there's usually like a commonality in terms of the wording there.
Okay, and then we have one question. Can we use a testimonies within our whereases? Can you just clarify what you mean by that?
Yeah. So I was thinking, if there is like a lack of statistics regarding this issue, but you do have individuals who are able to speak up about the issue, can we say like, oh, here's an IVC student within this community college. This is how they feel. Are we able to use that as a whereas? I don't know if that makes sense, but.
You can. I would encourage if you can get more, like, how would I say it? Like information that applies more statewide as opposed to just your local campus. A lot of the times, if there's a lack of statistics about something, I encourage students to start with your regions, and maybe that means you creating a survey to kind of get feedback from the other colleges in your regions about, if you're asking about if they have a particular service on their campus and you're trying to identify the need for a service, then start with your region and that, maybe have every college take a survey. And so that you can kind of use as a stat, right? You can say in region 2, 78% of colleges reported not having a gender inclusive facility or something like that. So that's something to think about too, right? You can get very, very creative with this. And it's not necessary to have stats in your whereases. If you think that, your problem is pretty commonly known among campuses, you can just kind of outline that without stats. But I do want to say stats certainly do help your case a lot.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of add to that by saying that when it comes to writing resolutions, one thing that I've seen in terms of like a pattern about how a lot of like the really good ones are written is that they're concise. And so that's kind of why when we were explaining how to write the resolution, we were kind of, or Kat was saying that they're kind of like just these long, like one sentences for each whereas. And so as a result of the fact that it's trying to be very like to the point, it doesn't really allow a lot of room for like personal anecdotes and stuff like that. However, when you are presenting this to an ASO or to to GA or to a region, I would recommend definitely bringing in a human element there, because I think that can be really convincing when you explain it like yourself. And I think that can really go well with a well articulated, very like maybe like stat or more stat heavy resolution, or a resolution that's more just explaining the issue and clarifying like why it is like an issue on paper. And then you can flesh it out in person by presenting about how there is a more human element to it, and you can create a very convincing argument that way.
All right, we do need to wrap it up at this time. This workshop is over, but I do also just want to mention a last point. A lot of the times, if there's not enough research about your topic, sometimes it takes a resolution to advocate for that research. And so sometimes that's a preliminary step that may have to take place before you can write a resolution on a specific topic. So that's also something to think about that you might want to do. But with that being said, we'll have to close the questions at this time, wind it up here. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully our answers to your questions were helpful as well. And of course, don't hesitate to email us. But with that being said, I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you for coming. Bye, everyone.